at National Institute of Technology, Warangal. Madam has done their PhD in English language teaching from Osmania University. She has 19 years of vast teaching and research experience. She has proclivity to train faculty and research scholars in area of academic writing and oral communication skills. So far, Madam has efficiently organized 30 workshops on English language teaching and learning. She has also received a very prestigious Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Lifetime Achievement National Award for her excellence in teaching, research, and publication conferred by SR Bangalore. She has also received Distinguished Women in Humanities and Social Sciences Award during the fourth annual Women's Meet organized by Venus International Women Award 2019. She has also chaired a session titled Reading and Writing Education in a 4-day London International Conference on Education 2017 organized by University of Cambridge, UK. Ma'am, we are honored to have you today as our speaker, and we are eagerly waiting to hear words of wisdom from you on topic new avenues and role of faculty in effective implementation of national education policy. Please welcome, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity given. A very good afternoon to the participants and also to the organizers of this FDP, sponsored by AICT Training and Learning Academy, organized by the Department of Management, Makhanlal Chaturvedi University, National University and Journalism and Communication. So I congratulate the organizers for this initiative in selecting the most befitting theme, that is role of faculty or NEP and its challenges, because now I think across the board, all the higher education institutes are undergoing a major reformation in terms of revising their curriculum, introducing new courses, new subjects, etc. So, in that context, I feel it's the very judicious decision taken by the coordinators in conducting this kind of FDP on the theme National Education Policy and its challenges. So it is mostly, I feel, post lunch sessions tend to be graveyard sessions, but then to the extent possible, let's try to make it interactive. And the topic is such, that it may not lend for optimal interaction, but it would be theoretical. Then it is left to the discretion of the listeners to contemplate on how to incorporate these principles enshrined in the NEP document 2020. So I'll be citing some examples from my end. Then how would you connect yourself to these examples, and how would you take the initiative to execute them in your respective departments or workplaces? So, to talk about NEP 2020, it was approved by the Union Cabinet of India on the 29 July 2020, almost an year ago, year and 14 months ago. This outlines the vision of India's new education system, and it replaces the previous national policy of education 1986. Earlier policies also have been formulated. We also have national curriculum framework, which is formulated every 10 years. As an anchor, it guides the schools and even higher education institutes about the kind of education and other allied activities to be followed at all levels, at all rungs, right from administration to policymakers to teachers, students, parents, society. So stakeholders are from all corners. So that was replaced by this extensive document has been contemplated, which is suitable for elementary education, to higher education as well. And it mainly focuses on vocational training in both rural and urban India. And it aims at a major or a phenomenal transformation in the education system by 2040. By 2040. So for 20 years, it throws a big challenge ahead. So the changes have just begun. I think slowly there is an awakening now. All over there have been workshops, similar workshops conducted. I too have attended a couple of workshops in the beginning last year itself, because at my workplace, my director insisted that we initially attend to them. Later on, we have undergone a rigorous kind of mm, not training, but then discussions, yeah, through meetings, one-to-one meetings, then group meetings, etc., with the faculty, with the heads, deans, etc. So the process began last year, soon after this was introduced, and a series of meetings were conducted. Lot of changes have taken place. Now we started executing it from November. I think the current batch, which is going to join us, the present BTech batch which will join. So it will be executed. So from our end, we are ready with the curriculum syllabus which has been approved in the Senate, etc. So likewise, very few institutions have started realizing the significance of this, and it would take some time for to them to assimilate, because any change is not accepted at the outset immediately. People would take time to accept a major change. I think that happened even in the past. People who could not digest the fact that earth, the shape of the earth is round. So there were many controversies. So any kind of alarming discovery made wouldn't be easily accepted by the people. So in the same vein, even this is taking some time among educationalists at the helm, and later it should reach out to students and stakeholders as well. So this change should be absorbed across all sectors or segments of people. I was trying to.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. You have muted yourself. Yeah, fine.
I was only trying to share my slides and the top icons.
Your screen is visible, ma'am.
But I wanted to go for auto slide share.
Okay.
I wanted to magnify. Okay.
Make it full screen first.
Yes,
All right.
And the PowerPoint, go to bottom right corner and you have to make it full screen.
Okay. Thank you.
Just next to the minus sign, you can, yeah, next to it, there's another sign. Yeah. No.
No.
One right, yeah.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, click on it.
Okay, got it. So as I mentioned, this replaced 1986 National Policy on Education. This is in brief about the history. And by 2030 at least, we have long-term and short-term plans to be identified. 5 years from now, what is that you are expected to do? So the departments, at the department level, at the heads level, the initiative has to be taken to arrive at the kind of changes to be made in terms of floating new courses, in terms of again floating interdisciplinary courses, in terms of introducing minor papers, minor programs, sorry, minor and major programs. If if it is an engineering department, then dual degree kind of. It's not a dual degree, but then they will have a certificate with specialization in other engineering department. So for management again, you could contemplate on, yeah, if this is exclusively a management college, but then uh, intradisciplinary interdisciplinary courses also. For instance, students doing their MBA in HR or finance or any other specialization should have exposure to the other HR or finance as a minor. So that kind of change can happen. It's possible with you because you have limited scope, but at a later stage, this could be a short term goal. This kind of change could be contemplated as a short term goal. But gradually, when change happens on a large scale at the institute level, at the administrators level, then interdisciplinary research also should be promoted. Interdisciplinary research. We need to expand. Organizations or educational institutions should expand and grow and become independent and autonomous and inviting even foreign students. It's a kind of exchange program that should be facilitated through NEP. So the aims are lofty, I would say. The aims enshrined in any NEP document are very lofty, but then you have to pick and choose slowly. Bite only little that you can chew and digest. But then change has to happen at whatever level, whether it's a small institute where they have limited freedom for make executing these changes, but still take a chance as an individual. I think every faculty also, after I teach what kind of changes, after I end my session, perhaps you will get some kind of understanding to be applied in your respective places. So how and what you will have to think about. What change should I, what is my role, how would I contribute to the department, to the institute, and to the society on a larger gamut of things. So the aims are lofty, as I said, by 2030, but ideally it is by 2040 as well. So now the education institutes are setting their goals with the time frame of the 2030 itself. But before that, 3 years to 5 years. 3 years short term goals and 5 years long term goals. That is the way we have worked. NEP 2020 has a target of 100% gross enrollment ratio in school education. Yeah. The broader aim, one of the aims is gross enrollment ratio should be 2030. Alarmingly, you will find that in most of the, yeah, with exceptions to the major cities and the colleges, but then there have been many dropouts. Even girls, women's enrollment, GR has been very low, though it has been improving gradually. So there are dropouts for various reasons, especially in higher education. Higher education, very few pursue their PhDs, research, and even very few pursue their PG programs. So they end up studying only UG, up to UG, or even less than that, lower degree than that. So the ultimate objective is to ensure that the education gross enrollment ratio in school education is 100%. Everybody should complete their 10th standard or intermediate successfully without any hitches. My slide doesn't move. Okay. Yeah. So it has global targets as well, not only national at a national or local level, indigenously. I hope I'm audible. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible and screen is also visible.
All right, thank you. So NEP envisions an India-centered education system that contributes directly to transforming not only the nation but also, uh, as I said, globally we would want to increase our visibility. We have not been attracting students from abroad. Only Indian students are, trained to go abroad. This is called brain drain theory. So all the intellectual pool is drained to countries like USA, UK, etc. So here is a way which has been thought of to attract students from other countries as well in the long run. And how did the idea germinate? Why is so much of importance given to uh, education system, a major reformation that is happening? The idea originated from one of the sustainable development goals identified in the year 2015. So SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 4, talks about quality education. So with this backdrop, I think NEP has been documented. So this will require the entire education system. How do we achieve it? Though these were formulated in 2015 SDGs, by 2030 they wanted to achieve them, but then there is no track laid. I think this is looked upon as a track laid to achieve all the SD, especially SDG number 4. And earlier documents focused on limited, they were very narrow, limited parameters, limited issues. But now everybody is involved, all segments of the society and administrators are involved. So there are some, I wouldn't call it as a flaw, but then there have been some shortcomings or gaps. Yeah, there have been some gaps in the policies that were formulated in the past. In one in 1986, and other was slightly modified in the year 1992. So after almost 20 years, I think NEP 2020 has been formulated. It is the first education policy of the 21st century, which aims to address many growing developmental imperatives. So, as I said, regulation, governance, reorganization of education structure has been called for through NEP. Besides, there are other uh, points as well, which it stresses. In a nutshell, I think this definition should help us understand about other skills that NEP aims to achieve. The prime objective of education is not only to develop cognitive capacities, but the foundational capacities of literacy and numeracy and higher order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking and problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional. So it is very comprehensive, though it is mentioned in a cryptic way, but then it encompasses many aspects. It talks about literacy, numeracy, cognitive capacities, critical thinking, problem solving, ethical and emotional capacities and dispositions. Even languages, bilingual and Bilingual teaching and education also has been emphasized in NEP. So the focus is on understanding. Earlier, uh, the people advocated that use of mother tongue in teaching is allowed only in the initial level, but then it also is looked upon as a hindrance. It hinders the learning of the language by the student or the learner. That is, teaching through mother tongue will hinder. But now it is believed that to ensure proper understanding, whether it is conceptual or linguistic understanding, to overcome those barriers, a bilingual education or methodology is also allowed as per NEP 2020. And ethical and emotional capacities. Now, child's emotional quotient, not only intelligent quotient should be taken into account, but also the emotional quotient and the multiple intelligences. Every learner will excel in one or two or three of all the 8 intelligences that have been identified by Howard Gardner. Gardner is a researcher, linguist who had identified and proved that there are 8 intelligences which every learner mm, can be capable of or possesses, provided they are trained to excel in them. You'll be surprised to know that you're good at singing, you're good at dancing, and you're good at teaching as well. You may be wondering, how come I'm able to do all of these? Or you'll be surprised sometimes or contemplate that why not I take to singing or why not I take to dancing rather than ending up in teaching. So it has been proven that yes, human being can excel in 2 or 3 such skills. They are good at either numerically or logical thinking. They are good at. They are good at interpersonal skills in dealing with people. They are good at dancing or doing certain works like carpentry, skill based. So they have certain skill sets and they should be tapped by the teacher. Even the role of the teacher also has been very challenging. We have witnessed that, we have been witnessing over the last 1 decade that teaching and learning is no more teacher centric. Classrooms are no more teacher centric, and teacher's role has changed from that of a teacher to that of a facilitator. She also should provide ample scope for the learners in the class to participate, and their contribution also should be recognized. They also contribute to learning. It is not the teacher alone. And we also have witnessed the concept of flipped learning, blended and flipped learning. We have been doing that, of course, through online or otherwise also. Even before the emergence of online teaching, we have been following the kind of assignments, the process of giving assignments to students and awarding marks, where they bank on many other resources in completing an assignment or a project. So we have been doing all these, but now there is a more conscious and dexterous need on the part of the teacher also to take up this challenge, to accept the responsibility, and this will definitely double the responsibility of the teacher, though we have been doing it, as I said, in the past. But now in a more systematic, streamlined way, you need to know the emotional state of the student and what, to what extent he or she can understand. Why does a student fail to understand the concept? How do you take the student into confidence as a teacher? So teacher should make the classroom ambience congenial. It should not be baffling. So here the teacher plays a major role in attributing to the development of all these skills or some of these skills gradually. Apart from that, further classifying or simplifying what has been said in the previous slide, this is in a nutshell, I said, but it could be split into sub points as well. So the purpose is not only to of education is not only to develop good human beings. Now we have emphasis on universal human values. We've been talking a great deal about teaching universal human values to students of engineering, management, and other science programs, social sciences programs as well. I do not know if that has been practiced at your college. Most of the colleges, this has been a mandate by ACTE that as soon as a student joins for any UG program, PG, of course, it is not mandatory, but the UG level, yes, gradually it may or may not be extended to PG level. We'll have to wait and see. So they talk about universal human being that will help them to become good human beings, to be happy, to make others happy, and think creatively and critically for the long time, for ecological balance and to minimize pollution, and for mutual understanding among people, for harmony, for striking good harmony among people. So education should train or teach these values as well. So it is a kind of reawakening. Already this was existing in the past, but now we are again revamping it. So at NIT we have conducted about for the last 3 years we have been teaching students of BTech engineering first year. For 15 days these course is taught, including creative arts. So they are taught some creative arts like dancing and making clay models, painting, to test their creative skills. And finally, on the last day, all these are displayed in the exhibition, and then they share their experiences, and all completely this is compiled, how the classes were conducted, the students experience. So media is also called, and then on a in a big way, the culmination, on the day of culmination, all this is presented, a summary of that, and they are very happy, both the students and the instructors. So 3 years we have been doing it. Before that we were trained, teachers were trained by the experts to Rajiv Sangal, I think, from BHU, IT, BHU. So he was a pioneer of this Rajiv Sangal. And uh, in Telangana, from Hyderabad, we have Pradeep Raman Charla, who works for Triple IT Hyderabad. He is a civil engineer, basically, but then he also is passionate in conducting various training sessions for teachers and otherwise, any regardless of discipline. It could be even technical staff. So this is gaining a lot of attention among the educationists and students as well. So good human beings, how do we make them good? How do we now, even in this competitive world, we realize that the cutthroat competition would make the students disappointed, discouraged. That results in untoward kind of, and they indulge in untoward activities, etc., etc. But then how do we lay a check on them is also a concern, of a major concern to the teacher and the educational administrators. So all these come: empathy, courage, compassion, resilience, creative imagination are part of universal human values. So this is one of the major principles of NEP 2020. So everybody should be welcomed, and even inclusive education is thought of very seriously. Inclusive education. And even this term is gaining a lot of prominence of late. Last 5 years, I think there have been many projects and lot of research happening, training programs, and a lot of awareness kind of trainings have been happening on inclusive education and role of teacher and educational administrations as well. That is, we do have, I think, in every class, a physically challenged, differently abled. Yeah, the present term used is differently abled. We cannot call them as physically challenged, etc. So the accepted term is, legally accepted term is, differently abled students. So what kind of provision do we give to such students? How do we ensure that they understand? Do you have such students in your class? In a class of 50 or 60 in your section, do you have differently able students? Now they have become the part of mainstream education that should be accepted. So they are part of mainstream education. And then what is the challenge for the teacher in addressing to their needs, educational needs and psychological needs as well? So we fail to devote any time to such students. Even in a class, in my class, where physical classrooms are filled with 80 is strength in each of the classes, 80 to 82, in which there are about 5% maybe 5 to 6 students, and I hardly check them. I ensure that okay, they understood, or I just ask something, but I do not pay much heed to their response. And I wonder how do they manage in problem solving. Sometimes visual is a problem. Visually they have problem. They cannot write. So all kinds of shortcomings they have. So how do they overcome, and how are teachers assisting them, and what is the role played by the management? So inclusive education also has been stressed by uh, NEP, including the differently abled students' needs, fulfilling their needs, and gender sensitization, etc. So every education system should make the classroom environment or campus environment congenial. It should be safe, and stimulating learning environment should be created. And wide range of learning experiences should be offered. I'm referring to second principle. So how do we? So it's not just one person taking a decision. So collectively, decision or change should happen collectively when everybody takes a serious decision on this. Then probably something positive can definitely happen. But before that, an understanding is important, as I said, and readiness to take them, accept them, and implement them, and prepare also. You need to have adequate resources. I think government is going to support some of the organizations. They're working on finance part as well. So the last point, third principle is there must be seamless integration and coordination across institutions and across all stages of education. Yeah, this is very complicated. All stages of education, there should be a kind of coordination. So rigorous planning has to take place. Rigorous planning and implementation. Planning is done, but execution part also should be done very meticulously. So all this can be achieved, but slowly it can be. Other fundamental principles of NEP. Yeah, sensitizing teachers as well, which we have already discussed. And teachers' aim is to promote holistic learning, like impart holistic education in both academic and non-academic spheres. According highest priority to achieving foundational literacy and numeracy by all students by grade 3. And flexibility, yeah, this is where the minor introduction of minor program. Flexibility so that learners have the ability to choose their learning trajectories and programs, and thereby choose their own paths in life according to their talents and interests. So earlier Mahatma Gandhi had stressed on vocational training, where educational institutes should offer training in other courses like carpentry, which will fetch them their livelihood. So that was thought of in the past, but now that should be streamlined in a more systematic way. So a student or a learner should have ample flexibility to choose their paths based on their talents and interests. So the present education system does not lend itself to catering to their needs. We need to agree that at the end of the day. And more importantly, arts and sciences. No hard separations between arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between occasional and academic streams, etc., in order to eliminate harmful hierarchies among and silos between different areas of learning. Earlier, arts was separated. Arts colleges were different. Arts and science college is different from that of an engineering college. Similarly, in a engineering curriculum, there is a distinction drawn between curricular and extracurricular activities. Similarly, vocational and academic. So they all should work hand in hand in congruence, so that to that extent the change should happen. And multidisciplinary across sciences and social sciences, arts and humanities, if not engineering, at least sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities. Holistic education, like, somebody from management can collaborate with humanities or social sciences or arts and humanities. In that combination, uh, research and education should be offered. So this is one of the prime goals or principles of NEP 2020, combining no hard separate distinctions between arts and sciences, and also promoting multidisciplinary and holistic education. So it goes on, but importantly, yeah, mm, promoting multilingual. I will only stress upon the important factors. Fifth point, fourth point, green in the green grid, promoting multilingualism and the power of language in teaching and learning. So multilingualism, but not only bilingual, but also multilingualism and the power of, yeah, classical languages, like universities should introduce new foreign and classical languages as well as credit courses, like as part of their curriculum. There should be marks or credits awarded for French language, German, Sanskrit, or any other regional language. No surprise. It could be foreign as well as regional language. If I am interested in learning Bengali, then I should be given an opportunity in my curriculum to learn that. Similarly, if someone else would want to learn South Indian languages like for that, they need resources. The first thing that an administrator would think of is resources, teachers. Do we have faculty? What kind of resources do we have? So we need to equip ourselves with such resources. We need to strengthen the resources. First, we need to prepare the curriculum, then the teachers, hire teachers, then students would slowly be attracted. So now the number also has been increased. A minor course can be offered if there are 10 students. The minimum number of students enrolling for a minor program, which is of 18 credits, which consists 6 papers, including a project, is 10. So, if in a class of 60 students, there should be at least 5 such minors with different specializations that should be offered to them. So, how ready are we? How equipped are we? How armored are we? Is what is to be thought of. So multilingualism, we have from the department, we have identified around 16 courses. We do not have the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at NIT Warangal, does not have any PG program, but they are called as service courses or service departments. And then we do offer a PhD program. We do have scholars enrolling for PhD program in linguistics, literature, and ELT. But then no PG program is offered. So all the programs or courses that are taught are for management, we teach business communication. For PhD students, we teach English for scientific communication. And for BTech, we offer 5 papers. Some as open electives. Open electives, they have a choice to select from pool of courses offered from different disciplines. If engineering, EC offers 2 electives, civil offer 2, we offer 2. So from which they can select one. So that way, 15 new courses have been floated, which includes German, a course in German, French, then a minor program with 6 subjects, including ethics, then practical writing, then we have creative and critical thinking. That's a paper. There are 6 papers as part of minor, 2 more papers for PhD level, because the PhD as part of their coursework for PhD program. Earlier, only 1 course was offered. Now, with the advent of NEP 2020, 2 more courses. One is pedagogical praxis, which has been emphasized in NEP 2020. I think somewhere 15.2, there they mentioned that it is mandatory for all the PhD students across all the disciplines to have completed a course in teaching methodology. In teaching, they should undergo this course of 3 credits, a compulsory credit course. So based on that, we have formulated the syllabus and got it approved in the BOS and Senate also. Senate is the highest body to approve in decision making and also in approving or rejecting or objectives, suggesting, etc. So in both the platforms, we got that approved, fortunately. Now the next step is to throw it open to students and wait for them to enroll. So 16 courses have been identified that suit students of different disciplines. So you have to think creatively, think out of the box, think big as teachers. Technology, of course, has been used. Yeah, all this appears to be very rigorous. It calls for, as I mentioned, the rigorous teacher preparation, robust recruitment, and well-defined career path and curriculum. Career path can be laid. Before that, the skeleton or the first step is remodeling or revising the curriculum, credits, papers, new courses, interdisciplinary courses, etc. Light but tight regulations, separation of functions to eliminate conflicts. So it's a kind of new vision and architecture for higher education with well-resourced multidisciplinary institutions. Then liberal arts, empowered governance and autonomy for higher education. It aims at, autonomy for higher education and empowered governance. They also insist on multiple exit points, flexible curricular structures, creative combinations of study, and entry and exit points. Yeah, this is something interesting which has been thought of by NEP 2020. That is, if the student joins a program in first year and he could not complete it, then he will be given a diploma kind of. And when he comes back at his convenient time, he can still be allowed to continue to join. So that is multiple exit points. First year he exits, second year he's not there. He can come back at a first year or second year, anytime he could quit. And entry points also have been thought of, but at the moment they have not been, encouraged, because institutions are afraid that it would mess up with the structure, academic structure. So they have not been contemplating on my entry, but exits, yes. Multiple exits are either in first year, if you quit, you will get one diploma. If it is a certificate, yeah. Second year, it is a diploma. Third year, it is something else. So that way, it provides or allows for multiple exit points. And other bodies that have been supporting or which could be banked on are National Research Foundation to catalyze research and innovation, and Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog custodian. So yeah, in terms of again at the policy making level, what does it stress on? So this is in a more organized and more concrete fashion presented. So technology is used to improve teaching. Role of technology. One of the key areas is education technology, so which supports teacher preparation and continuous teacher professional development. Then streamline education planning, administration, and management. Yeah, all this should co-work together. There should be a forum, new National Education Technology Forum, which should allow for free exchange of ideas on the use of technology to improve learning, assessment, planning, and administration. So there should be a base or a push kind of to motivate the educational institutes to incorporate these changes. The National Repository of Educational Data. So there's something called National Repository of Educational Data, which will maintain all records related to institutions, teachers, and students in digital form. So again, highlighting on what institutional restructuring and consolidation mean. So consolidation of current 800 universities and 40 colleges into about 15,000 large, well-resourced, vibrant institutions. They should be merged. Universities and colleges should be merged, and large, well-resourced, vibrant institutions should emerge. And all higher education institutes to be consolidated into three types. Yes, research universities, teaching universities, autonomous degree, granting colleges almost exclusive focus on teaching. So in the long run, there should be only three types of institutions. They should be consolidated to these three levels. Either you call it your university a research university where focus is on research, or it could be called a teaching university where focus is on teaching, or autonomous degree where granting colleges, which is again teaching centric, but permitting colleges. The powers vary. High quality institutions in disadvantaged geographies. Yeah, paying attention to uh, high quality institutions or developing high quality institutions in disadvantaged geographies, which should be a priority. So already I think government has taken the initiative to expand these higher education institutes, maybe IITs or NITs. Then there are deemed universities, private affiliated universities. So government has been taking initiative in establishing colleges even in remote areas. Some of the remote places also we find that reputed college institute is established. So still there are places where there are no colleges, higher education institutes established across many uh, corners in the country. So they have to identify such remote places and then establish high quality institutions. And there should be substantial public investment from the government end. So all this is possible with sufficient funds. Then liberal, another key factor is high quality liberal education. What is liberal education? Multidisciplinary, of course, we have seen multiple exit and entry points, which I mentioned earlier. Masters and doctoral education provide research based specializations. Then a degree can be integrated as well. 3 to 4 year undergraduate degree with multiple exit options, or 3 year bachelor's degree, 4 year program bachelor's of liberal arts in chosen major and minors, or it could be 5 year integrated program, 5 year MSc program. Like even MBA, you can plan for an integrated program, degree plus PG. So this change can be executed. Or further providing flexibility, 2 years for those with 3 year graduate degree, or 1 year for those with 4 year undergraduate degree with honors, or integrated. Even in this, there are sub uh, points for free will kind of flexibility. In terms of again academic bank of credit, they also talk about another important key area is optimal learning environments and student support. What do they mean by that? Choice-based credit system to be revised and improved to allow for flexibility and innovation. That is, of course, academic bank of credit also has been highlighted upon, which would denote a pool of courses. There should be an academic. They call it as a bank. Academic bank is a kind of repository with multiple courses where students can pick and choose. But what we have presently is very limited. As I said, in our department, we floated 16 new courses as opposed to 5 courses that were offered in the past. We were only teaching one course for BTech first year, one for third year, one for fourth year, one for management, and one for PhD. Only 5 courses were offered before the implementation of NEP. But now, so we are adding to the academic bank of credit. So discipline wise, year wise or semester wise. First sem, how many subjects, compulsory subjects, how many open electives, how many audit courses are offered. So that curriculum structure has to be formed very carefully. So at every level, I think academic bank of credit is called for, where students have to choose choice-based credit system with flexibility and innovation. Even the emphasis is on academic, financial, and emotional support. Financial support also. I think presently they do get some scholarships for who are economically weaker section background, EWS background that is called as. So in the form of scholarship for with net and other provisions, they do get financial support, but then that should be streamlined again. So emotional, that has been clubbed with the academic, financial, and emotional support available, should be available for students to help attain better outcomes. And more importantly, assessment. When it comes to assessment, they should be assessed based on not only their academic aspects but also on broad capacities like cognitive thinking, numeracy skills, higher order thinking skills, resilience. So all these should be taken. The fortunately or unfortunately, the present education system takes into account only educational performance, like it is academic based, and these are secondary. Other aspects of learning become secondary and they are not counted. So the stress emphasis is on regular, like summative and formative. You have two types of assessments. So regular basis, periodical assessment has to be done. Monthly basis, not only the assignment which the student does, but otherwise also in terms of regularity, participation, interaction in the classroom. To what extent the student is fulfilling or is motivated, you have to check. So all these factors also carry weightage. Even open and distance learning should be expanded. So if you are offering MBA through regular mode, you can plan for offering through distance mode and at least a diploma through distance mode or regular mode can be thought of. So even we were planning to offer a diploma course of 1 year online, but then this floating these 16 courses itself would be a Herculean task in terms of appointing faculty, regularizing it. So maybe 1 year from now, 1 year or 1.5 years from now, we have included it in the long-term goal when it comes to achieving short-term and plans for short-term and long-term to be achieved. In the short term goals, we have identified all this. We conducted a conference for it's a national pan NIT conference, uh, inviting it's a been 1 day international conference followed by directors dialogue panel, etc. So it was a 3 day international conference which was also again enshrined in NEP, that exchange promote interdisciplinary research. So how what is happening across also 14 NITs participated, 14 to 15 NITs participated, altogether 16 NITs including NIT Warangal. So you could plan for such a conference as well, inviting faculty and students from management institutions across India. And you could establish a practice of uh, conducting it every year or biannually uh, at various places. So last year we did it in 2020 Jan. This Jan 21 Jan we did. 22 Jan MNIT Jaipur is doing. MNIT Jaipur has started all the preparations and it is gearing up so confidently with commitment. So such activity also can be thought of as part of, like, apart from offering distance education degrees or diploma degrees can be offered, and even conferences also can be offered in line with NEP. Regarding faculty also, though we have learned that it calls for recruitment, strengthening the resources, in that context, all this is achieved only with the quality and experienced faculty. So the practice of ad hoc or contractual appointing contractual faculty should be stopped. Faculty recruitment based on academic expertise, teaching capacities, dispositions for public service should be taken up. So by 2030, no, the system of hiring ad hoc faculty should be stopped, and regular recruitment should happen by all institutions by 2030. That is all the 15,000 institutions which they have planned for here, merging all this large, well structured, vibrant, multidisciplinary institutions. So we will witness many major changes in the long run in terms of merging some colleges, affiliating or attaching them to other universities, etc. There should be inter-university center for international education setup within selected Indian universities. I think I mentioned this in the some time ago about global attracting global students as well. How is that possible? So establish inter-university center for international education setup within some select Indian universities. So it's a center for international education which should be set up in some select universities. That will promote internationalization of education. Yeah, ad hoc faculty should be stopped, and continuous professional development plan. Of course, FDPs are organized, and it should be made mandatory that every semester they have to undergo some kind of training in the upcoming innovative methods, teaching methods, digital tools, whether it is use of digital tools, digital platform, any kind of such innovative topics. So this faculty should be encouraged to attend to such professional development programs continuously. So they should be part of every institutional development plan. Faculty recruitment and development, career progression, compensation, management to be part of every institutional development program. And faculty should be empowered to make, this is for faculty again, to make curricular choices for their courses. Yes, we did that exactly. So the content and the choice of the papers was identified by all the faculty in the department collectively. So we sat and for several meetings for hours, marathon meeting sessions were conducted for 2 months almost. Even last week I was busy. Until last week also I was very busy with all this. So now most of the work is done, where I'm glad to share that we have were given
Tadi
the
ada Watson aja, itu Watson aja bukan message aja.
we
Saya
were
coba
given the
message
liberty to
Lu coba dia
choose
check करे message.
the kind of courses. Of course, you can, if you think you need some expert guidance, then write to people of other universities. Tell them we are planning for new courses as part of NEP and we need your suggestions, and send them a rough draft of the syllabus or the titles. From your end, you do the groundwork, you research something and put it on a paper and then forward it for others, experts help. So that kind of freedom also should be given to the faculty. That's very important. Then in terms of empowered governance and autonomy in higher education, so they should become autonomous self-governing entities. They should not become affiliated colleges, but then they should become autonomous, and they should be governed by independent boards with complete academic and administrative autonomy. Yeah, very few institutes have this kind of autonomy. But in the long run, 10 years to 15 years from now, this change would be witnessed. Then board, whether the formation of the board, the chair and the VC to ensure elimination of external interference. So it should be done internally at the institute level itself. They should be free to start and run programs, decide curricula, student capacity, resource requirements, develop internal systems, etc. And affiliated colleges will develop into autonomous degree granting colleges. Affiliating universities will develop into vibrant multi. So that is a promotion, transition from one stage to another. So affiliated colleges will get autonomous status, and affiliating universities will become a multidisciplinary institutions. Okay. I hope all of you are with me and you're able to grasp it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So for research, government should grant 20,000 crores, which should be increased progressively over the next decade. Annual grant of 20,000 crores across the major research universities. In the previous slide, we have seen that there will be three types of colleges: research colleges, teaching colleges, and then affiliated autonomous colleges. So for research colleges, National Research Foundation will support in expanding research and innovation in the country, and it also provides grants. And what is the scope of NRC? Funding research in all disciplines through a competitive peer review based process. Peer review, that is, others will review. You know what peer review is. Then building research capacity at academic institutions across the country, creating beneficial linkages between researchers, government, and industry, recognizing outstanding research through special prizes and seminars. The foundation will have four major divisions to start with: sciences, technology, social science, arts and humanities. Arts and humanities, social sciences, sciences and technology. All engineering disciplines would come under technology. Sciences will include maths, physics, chemistry. Social sciences will include economics, languages, sociology, psychology, etc. Social sciences are sociology, psychology, etc. And arts and humanities will include languages. Arts and languages. So this is the scope of work of the foundation. So it will grant funds as per the divisions suggested. Then there's another body named Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog. It is also called as National Education Commission, which is an apex body to be constituted, chaired by the Prime Minister. It is yet to be constituted. So, Union Minister of Education will be the Vice Chairman with direct responsibilities related to day-to-day matters. Who are the members? It will comprise eminent educationists, researchers, union ministers, representation of chief ministers of states, eminent professionals as well. So that's an important body, very crucial one, which will monitor the distribution of funds and decision making to ensure excellence. So this will have a group of educationals, researchers, chief ministers, and professionals from various fields. They should be of high expertise and we have a good record of public contribution in their fields. Then what's the role of this Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog? It will work closely with every state to ensure coordination and synergy. Like every state can have maybe, they said 15,000 universities, 32 roughly, 32 divided by 15. So geographically, they wouldn't be able to distribute proportionately, but it might vary on an average. So every state will have around 400 colleges, 400, and in that every district will have some, depending on the population. So all this, the functioning of all these universities will be monitored by Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog. Ayog will be the custodian of education in India. Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog. So research again, to talk about research. Now I would want you to think about the changes that could be, what kind of change that you would want to bring about and in your respective workplaces. Now that you have heard to my talk, to half or to major part of my talk, and I've shared the kind of work we are doing at NIT in terms of minors, honors, new courses, interdisciplinary courses, etc. What are your plans? I would want you to jot down at least two such, one short term and one long term, or two to each. We'll take up this exercise for 5 minutes. So it's 2:27 now. Maybe you take a couple of minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and I would want you to share your experience. I mean, to share your views of implementing some of these policies at your workplace. Shall we take it up? I would want you to volunteer to share your views.
Yes, ma'am, sure. All participants, you have heard Madhi ma'am. So if whatever she's saying, please take 5 minutes and write down what kind of changes you want in your organization, university.
Two short term and two long term goals.
Two short term and two long term.
Yeah.
I request all participants to participate in this conversation. It will be a very great interactive session.
Ma'am, we are thinking.
Yeah. Please take your time.
There is a chat from Dr. Nirmala, ma'am, and she's saying that start new subjects, undergo 2 FDP courses per year.
New subjects. Which this department? Please introduce yourself and which courses have you have on mind? Can you be more specific, please?
Uh,
And at what level?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Nirmala Diabro from Government College, Pedney, Goa. Actually, I was thinking of some self-development courses. That's actually in my mind to have some self-development courses. And for the first year, second years, and FDPs, the teachers will have to attend at least 2 in a year if we wanted continuous improvement in the teaching stuff. That's what I had planned.
Okay. And long-term goals?
Long term, I haven't thought of it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your views. Can we get some more responses, please? One or two?
Anyone is having any suggestion, and do you have any goal for your university? Please mention. You can chat, or you can also unmute your mic and speak. Yes.
Now I teach diploma to English. I teach diploma students and I teach English. So in the short term, I think one idea that I liked about NIT, your college, was that you had conducted conferences. So maybe if we can conduct group discussions for students from various other colleges and invite different colleges to participate. So that will promote internet-based learning as well as students will be able to
Okay.
with a wider set of people. So only one short-term goal, and in the long term,
Please participate. Hello. One at a time, please.
in the long term, we might
Cross
Dr.
talks.
Rudresh ji, please unmute yourself. Yeah. Sorry about that.
in the
Yeah, please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so in the long term, I was thinking maybe that the students from technical colleges face a lot of difficulty in understanding their coursework in English. So maybe we could take up the translation of some technical subjects with the help of the technical teacher with us.
Yeah, that
So
is
that is a
content.
long-term goal, I think of.
Okay, good idea.
Yes, ma'am, content translation.
Content and
And
language.
ma'am, something that I wanted to ask was how can we raise funds? Like NIT is a big college, but like for small colleges, how can we raise funds at our level?
Yeah, there are some funding bodies as well which support conduct of workshops like ICSSR, Indian Council for Social Sciences and Research. Then National Women Commission also, NWC, they also support financially for conducting, or even I think book writing, some translation. You'll have to go through the guidance. There are very few. However, there are very few. So you can write to the management, and if they're supportive, well and good. Otherwise, you can try this way as well. Many
I'm
funding.
not through the management route. If like we could directly like through NGOs or CSR, like can we manage it on our own? Like can we do that?
Yeah, if you are volunteering to do so, then you can. So you only need to seek permission, and you have to think of the viability, practicality of it. Whether you have students, are you allowed to uh, try out on them? So all those other factors you need to think of. If you think you get such support, then independently also you can plan. So the kind of support that is needed from the faculty, colleagues, you have to check. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, there is a suggestion from Promila Dabas. She wrote that my vision is creating professional and human teachers for the nation, and my short-term goal is to produce competent teachers. She teach in a B.Ed college.
Okay, good. So I wish you good luck
Yes.
in your endeavor.
Hello. Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, and this provides a clear-cut path. Of course, you have mentioned in a very cryptic in brevity that you would want to train teachers in these aspects, but then it has split in what aspects. NEP has provided you a track, clear-cut path to on how can you train and what are the skills that you need to impart to them. So following that, I think you could do a much better.
आवाज कम कैसे करूंगा मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है लेक्चर नहीं सॉरी है मैं
Dr. Priyadarshini, do you have any question?
नो मैम इट्स ओके थैंक यू
Please mute. Yes. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Continue, please.
No problem. So I was only telling that your objective is really meaningful, very logical, and dedicated. But then this should help you. This should help support you to achieve it. B.Ed teachers, of course, trainers are doing it, but then that is very limited. The kind of training they get is very limited. So here you have to educate them on a larger platform. Okay. Now, yeah, do we have some more responses? You have-
yes ma'am this is Dr. Priyadarshini may I ask something
Yes, please.
Yes, first of all, I'm so sorry that for that time. Actually, nowadays, what I realized that there are more number of students who has learning disability or who has some some other deficiency we can say in terms of learning and all. So, like as a teacher, how we can help them?
Yeah. So first thing is, of course, you have to interact, get to know the basic problem of the student and how can you help them. Is it possible for you to do so? And you have to seek support from the management together, like collectively. It is not just you who teaches in your class, but there would be other teachers. So collectively as a team, you have to submit a letter for permission and what kind of help. You definitely need to devote time. Do you have such time with you? Beyond your class hours, is a boy or a girl also willing to spend time with you? Are they willing to open up? Are they willing to open up? So for them to open up, the institute should provide such environment. They need to know that, okay, teachers will come and talk to me. They will help me. Otherwise, their mind is closed. They're cocooned, kind of, in fear. They're cocooned in fear. So that fear element, that inhibition should be broken. They should also be taken into confidence that you are there to help them, whether it is language teacher, maths teacher, whatever the subject. So individually, it may be difficult, but your readiness, the fact that you raised a question shows that you are ready to help them. But then alone, it may not be possible. No, take stock of the number of students in each class. Do other teachers also face same problem? Are they willing to come forward to help them? Then collectively, when you go and talk to the management, probably something can be done. Beyond class hours, you should spend some time, provided they agree. And how you plan it, like one day it will be language, one day it will be maths. Weekly 2 hours or 1 hour you need to get. So that planning also has to be done. Because the differently able students, it will be difficult, they have varying problems, physical problems, intellectual problems, visual problems, etc. Unless you lively watch are at the place, we cannot. It will be difficult for us to
gauge the intensity of the problems and the kind of help to be rendered. But primary thing, team and that kind of willingness to empathetic attitude by the institute is important. What I see in Warangal is peers help them. Either parent comes to this college, dropping the child and taking him, or sometimes peers, his friends help him from taking him from one place to another whenever there are labs conducted in some other place. Or sometimes they help them in understanding a problem also. Mathematical problem, teacher teaches quickly, erases a board. Then this boy supports, his friend supports. To that extent, it is happening, but not at the teacher's level. But it should happen. That is what I was trying to tell you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, ma'am. I am Dr. Arvind Sharma from Chandigarh Engineering College. Ma'am, I just want to ask that there are two type of accreditations for the institutes. So one is NAC and the other one is NBA. So in one of the lectures, I listened that the NAC only institutes having NAC accreditation will be preferred to be inducted in the academic bank of credits, or they will be promoted to the multidisciplinary institutes. So is it true, or NBA institutes will also be preferred for the same?
That was a old order, old school thought.
Okay, ma'am.
Now, a new school of thought is this. There will be no such distinction. That is what NEP says. There shouldn't be any higher order or lower order hierarchies. Across, there should be only three types of university. Research universities, which promote multidisciplinary research. Autonomous, we have seen in the slide. We'll go back to that.
Ma'am, what will be the criteria of converting the simple institutes to the research institutes or the other institutes?
That is where governance is. Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog will intervene, and the National Research Foundation also will intervene.
Means the policy is being framed.
Yet to be framed. Yet to be framed. But within the institute, in a little smaller way, whatever you can, that has to be done.
Okay, ma'am.
So
Thank you.
this is the one I was referring to.
Thank you, ma'am.
Autonomous universities, teaching universities. So now a NAC and an NBA will take a back seat, I feel. Or maybe for some time they will, of course, they will persist, they will flourish, but only for some days, because that is also towards a step towards aiming excellence and checking infrastructure wise. So multidisciplinary part, we have to wait and see whether NAC will.
So ma'am, what is your suggestion? Should we go for NB or NAC, or should we wait for some time?
No, you can. I think this will take a long time. Now, to streamline yourself, because NAC parameters, prerequisites are very different and tough also. So whether it is faculty student ratio or research, many infrastructure amenities are insisted upon. So on those lines, if you are training, I think 50% of it is fulfilled through NAC and NBA. And remaining 50% has to be left to the government policy makers.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Fine. I will move on to what we did at NIT, short term and long term. 20 to 23, this first one is already done. Second one, no, this we are through. This is done. This this is also almost not as a diploma, but the proficiency courses we are planning to by establishing a cell that is called SPL cell. So S stands for skills, personality and language proficiency development cell or center, it is called SPL cell. As part of that, we wanted to train students in language proficiency and and as part of skills, we wanted to teach them basics in operating computers. That is one proposal. And the third is personality development, of course, training them for employability, interviews, etc. So this is also in the pipeline. This one also is contemplated next year, 23 to 30, maybe next 3 years or so. Offer a BA and MA program. And this is yet to happen. First one and long-term goal. Recruit faculty. Yeah, I've submitted their letter to the dean faculty for requirement in very special, even sociology and psychology. We wanted to recruit faculty, not only in language, since we are called humanities and social sciences department. So it is incomplete without the faculty who specialized in sociology and psychology, and French and German as well. So initially on ad hoc basis, we would recruit and run the courses. After 1 or 2 years, probably when the recruitment happens, yeah, it's a time-taking process. Let us accept the fact that all this will take time, but we should be optimistic, I feel. So this have been our plans submitted to the director. Okay, I'll just close this. So research emphasis, moving on. A clustering of educational, already we have seen that there would be clusters, and national and international collaborations, industry collaborations and incentives. Industry collaborations also should be promoted as part of research university. That is, MOUs, like memoranda of understanding. MOU is a memoranda of understanding, which should be signed with industries, which would promote research and other incentives to the students. Even centers of excellence should be started. Like as I said, we wanted to start SPL center. So likewise, in your respective departments, subjects that you teach, you can plan for such centers as well. Multi and interdisciplinary projects. Now only intradisciplinary, not even intra. I think we can aim at inter, provided the funding bodies notify accepting such proposals. And even for PhD program, initially it is offered in languages, but gradually to what extent I can succeed in promoting interdisciplinary is to be thought of. If a student doing PhD in humanities, that is in language, would want to do a research combining management course as well, or economics or psychology, then we need to have resources. Teachers should be there to guide at both the ends, maybe from this university or other university. So both the universities, psychology teacher from some other university should be willing to guide the scholar, and scholar also should be willing to work with the person. So permission is needed from both the universities. So at that level, things are yet to be refined. Things are at sea at the moment. They're happening only at the internal level, but such bigger aims can be achieved in the long run. But it is possible, I feel. Clustering of educational and research institutions, working together on problems of local society as well as for global expectation. So clustering of educational and research institutions. Sometimes they should work together for identifying problems in society. Yeah, this we have been doing at NIT. We already have such exchange programs where students are sent to study abroad for internship for 6 months, sometimes for 1 year, with the select colleges that have entered into an MOU, select universities across Europe. So these are other key areas emphasized. There could be partnership and collaboration between colleges. Some PhD scholars should be permitted to teach part-time in an autonomous degree awarding college. They can be assigned with teaching workload, 2 hours class per day. Student funding, this is related to student funding. So this I think we have already seen. Internship, student outcomes, etc. Digital internationalization. Internationally relevant curricula in the sciences, social science beyond to be put in place. Programs and subjects like Indology, Indian languages, MUSH systems of medicine, yoga, arts, history, culture, and modern India to be offered. So on internal, this is on internalization. This is on digital education. So this is on student outcomes, student internship, etc. So infrastructure also needs to be faculty strength. If it is the Department of Humanities, then faculty in all these disciplines should be recruited. Certificate programs, which I already mentioned, which we discussed already. Either it can be 3-year degree, 5-year degree, etc. Minor and major. Or it could be industry relevant bachelor's program. With these options, yeah, this is important. Could be a 4-year BTech program, 4-year BSc program with applied chemistry, data science, pharmacy, sociology, combination of all the disciplines. So this is for master's program. Master's program should provide intermediate exit option, and all the master's program have to be reviewed with the industry relevance. Some titles or courses can be dropped or retitled or restructured. Content can be revised depending on the contemporary demand. So if the student completes 1 year of study, he'll be given a diploma. If he completes 2 years, MTech in the respected specialization. in the respective specialization. MBA programs can be on technology management, business analytics, healthcare management. So these are some of the disciplines or specializations in which MBA programs can be offered, in addition to the existing ones. So technology management, business analytics, healthcare management. Okay. Yeah, certificate courses for management, which suit management course also can be thought of. So anyway, what we have been doing, this is not very much relevant to you, which I've already, even so alumni should be built, strengthened. Yeah, another important point is form an association, alumni association, and update them about the happening and use them like academically for academic growth and promotion. You can invite for such meetings with them. You can be in touch with them constantly. So having a good connection with alumni is very essential. So the road is difficult, but future is bright. So with commitment and success, one can definitely reach out. So the present policy envisages creation, transmission, use and dissemination of knowledge as a part of this country. So, thank you for the opportunity given. With this, I come to the end of my session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really enlightening, and listening to you reminded me of very famous quote of Winston Churchill, that is, to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often. NEP is that change in education system of India. And I'm sure after the knowledge and thoughts that you have shared will surely show a path to many for effectively implementing national education policy. Any participant is having any question, they may chat or ask. We have 5 minutes.